The coat hung by the door, unbothered by time, still curved like she just stepped out. It wasn't the color he noticed, or the torn seam at the sleeve. It was the way it exhaled her every time he passed. Cigarettes, lilacs, and something that had no name, just ache. The coat still held her perfume, soft as a whisper in winter light. She didn't take it with her. Maybe she meant to. Maybe she wanted him to remember her that way. Half worn, half gone. He lit a match in the kitchen. It didn't warm the room, only made the air more hollow. He played her old vinyl, but it skipped where her laugh used to be. The coat didn't mind, it just kept smelling like a goodbye. She whispered into fabric, memories don't knock, they hang quietly, waiting for the door to open. He never moved the coat, never wore it, never dared to touch what still belonged to her shadow. A slow, smoky saxophone lingers near the doorway, breathing in her scent and exhaling the ache. Snow tapped the windows, he didn't hear it. The coat still held her perfume, and that was enough to stay another winter. The trees lean closer, not for shade, but to hear him play. His fingers moved like October, changing color note by note, letting go the way only autumn knows. She watched from behind the curtain, a mug in her hands, a heart in her throat. Every key he touched felt like a story. He didn't have words, for he played like the leaves were listening, like even silence had a seat at the table. She swore the wind paused just to catch a single chord, and maybe, just maybe, that song was never meant for her. But she knew it always reached her first. The porch light buzzed, the air was crisp, and somewhere someone else he stayed, bent slightly at the bench, breathing rhythm, one soft pedal at a time. The room didn't move, except for the dust that danced in tune. If jazz is how a man says what he can't explain, then she understood why he never needed to speak. No promises, no future, just the sound of him playing, like the world had ears and only she could translate. A tender piano solo drifts like golden leaves, soft, slow, fading with grace into the hush of knowing. She left the window open so the trees could remember him too. Because once, just once, she heard a man play like the wind might ride it down. It was winter, but the sky stayed still. Even snow didn't dare interrupt her leaving. She always said snow was forgiveness, a white sheet thrown over what couldn't be explained. But that year, the sky held back, no softness, no sound, just the way her footsteps never came back up the drive. She didn't slam the door, she didn't cry, she folded the silence into the sleeves of her coat. Snow didn't fall that year, not a flake, not a flinch, as if the sky agreed that she was right to go. The trumpet player on May played softer than usual, even jazz knew she wasn't coming home. He lit candles, but not for romance, for proof that something could still melt. He played her favorite record, but it skipped on the first verse, just like she did when things got too real. The piano didn't weep, it waited. He used to say she moved like weather. Now he understood what a drought could feel like. In the shape of a woman, there's cold and then there's empty. And that year, even winter refused to forget. A distant trumpet cries with frozen breath, like snow trying to fall. it just leaves a silence you can't shovel through. The frost traced her outline, but the glass no longer whispered who she once was. Every morning she used to lean there, coffee in hand, bare feet on cold tile. That window knew her size, the rhythm of her heels, the shade she liked to wear when she wasn't smiling. Now the curtain sways alone, the glass stares out, blank as his expression when someone mentions her name. The window forgot her name, like walls forget the laughter, like snow forgets the warmth it once covered. Even reflections moved on, only the chill remains and the faint trace of her perfume on the sill. She'd hum Billie under her breath, tap her ring on the frame like a metronome of waiting he never sang. Just played along in the silence she left behind. Now the sunlight feels stranger, as if it's asking for someone it can't remember. The same grass holds memory, but even glass fogs over, and the heart, it blurs faster than breath. No letters came, no keys turned, just a name that slipped out of the room before he could ask it to stay. Slow saxophone bleeds down the window pane, each note smudging the frost where her name once lived. Somewhere she's laughing, somewhere she's warm, but here, even the window can't pronounce who used to be, who she used to be. She didn't just leave him, she left the room quieter, like even the ashtray missed her. The bar stool beside him had her imprint still pressed into it, like the night hadn't exhaled her absence yet. The lipstick stain on her last glass hadn't faded. Even the bartender poured 2 drinks without asking. He smokes slower now, letting the embers last in case she sent back a ghost. He used to tap the ash without thinking. Now every flick felt like losing her again. Even the ashtray missed her, empty in the wrong kind of way. It still held the curve of her last cigarette, the ghost of her goodbye, smoldering in silence. The room hadn't changed, but nothing breathed the same since she walked out in that blue coat and didn't look back. He talked less, drank more, let the jukebox choose songs that reminded him of nothing but her heels. She'd hum during the bridge, snap her fingers on beat, always leave before the final verse. Now the bridge feels too long and the verses don't end. Even strangers in the bar stopped asking where she'd gone. They knew, they could smell her absence. Not all exits come with slammed doors, some come with perfume that won't let go of the air. She wasn't a woman you forget, she was a habit you never quit. And he was still smoking her memory, one ash at a time. The lonely piano waltzes with ghosts that sit beside him, playing what she never finished. He emptied the ashtray again, but the room still smelled like her laugh, her lie, her lipstick on nights he never got back. She told him once, not all silence wants to be filled. The night was dripping slow off the glass in her hand, and her eyes watched the room like it was already over. He asked too soon, answered too fast, tried to fix what only time could carry. She breathed in words, but only let silence out, not as punishment, as warning. Don't rush the silence, it speaks in its own time. There's music in the waiting and rhythm in restraint. Let the hush hold your hand before you chase another loud goodbye. The sax in the corner knew better. It bent each note like a whisper. He used to talk to fill space. Now he listened for her pauses, for the spaces where forgiveness lives. She leaned back in her chair, not leaving, just not ready to begin again. a tempo and stillness, and not every love song starts on the downbeat. Wait for the silence to open. Don't knock, don't force, just stand outside and listen. A muted trumpet drips like candle wax down the spine of the night, honoring what wasn't said. She stayed longer than he deserved, but she left before he learned to love her slow. They asked how she danced with all that sorrow stitched beneath her dress. She didn't wear her pain like perfume or pearls, but it followed her like melody in a minor key. Each step she took echoed something she survived, and when she swayed, the room leaned with her like it understood. She never cried in public, but the cracks in her voice knew the lyrics to every kind of leaving. Her scars had rhythm, slow and syncopated, the kind of beat that doesn't ask permission, just enters your chest and stays a while. They were drums played by ghosts who never asked her name. She didn't need to explain. The piano did that when she walked in. Chairs turned slightly, men tipped their hats a little slower. She lit a cigarette like lightning, a fuse, and smiled like she'd already forgiven you for what you hadn't done yet. Her laugh didn't sparkle, it cracked like old vinyl on a song too tender to play. She once loved without rhythm, but pain taught her time. Now every pause is purpose, every note a negotiation. You can't rush her story, you can only dance to it. Offbeat, barefoot, breath held between verses. A saxophone slides through the hush, carving her name into the smoke with every aching note. She never told her story, she sang it, and the silence stood to applaud when she left the room. The snow fell soft after that year, as if afraid to say what the calendar couldn't hide. She left in a coat that smelled like pine and silence, and never turned at the door. Every step she took sounded like a skipped record, a crack in time you can't fix. He waited where their boots once dripped on that red-tiled floor, but this December had no echo. The fire was lit, the tea grew cold and still. She was nothing but the shape the wind made through unopened letters. December didn't bring her back, not in the coat closet, not in the steam on the mirror, not in the song she used to hum when the soup was almost done. The house was full of lights, but none of them knew her name. He put her records on backward, thinking maybe she left a message in reverse. He wore her gloves to the store just to feel how she moved, but they didn't fit the way she never fit into staying. The stairs creaked like they missed her way. Even the dog stopped barking at the door. Snow fell on the porch like applause after the wrong song. It tried to mean something, it failed. He folded the calendar in half, as if skipping the day would keep the memory from forming again. A low tired trumpet rises like fog over a frozen street that used to carry her footsteps. He didn't put the wreath out this year. Even grief, he thought, needs a break from pretending. Not all ghosts rattle chains. Some just walk ahead of you and never look back. He left the diner at closing time. Coffee cold, words colder. The waitress didn't ask if he'd be back tomorrow. She already knew. Snow dusted the pavement like soft denial. No prints behind him, no proof he'd passed through. The lampposts hummed like they pity his coat. He lit a match just to see if he still had breath. He walked home without footsteps, not one sound claimed him. Even the wind let him slip by unnoticed. He wasn't running like a cello string. He didn't flinch. The house no longer asked questions. He poured her tea out of habit, let it cool into another empty ritual. Even the clock ticked softly now, as if afraid to wake the part of him that still looked for her boots by the fire. You don't need snow to feel winter. Sometimes silence covers everything just the same. He carried a weight too light to explain, the kind of sorrow that floats but never leaves. A midnight saxophone weeps down a quiet alley, lost like him, but still trying to remember the way. The door closed behind him with no echo, and even that felt like a kindness. Some goodbyes don't need doors, just a quiet room and something left behind. The hat sat on the piano like it knew a song he'd never play again. Velvet brim tilting, holding her shape as if her head might return at any moment. She wore it the night they argued in whispers so the music wouldn't hear. Now it guarded the silence, the soft kind that only a piano can forgive. The hat on the piano was hers, and nothing else in the room had the courage to move it. Even the dust stepped lightly around that curve she once traced with red-tipped fingers. He tuned the piano last spring, but never touched it since, afraid the first note might echo her name. Once he dreamt it played itself, each key a heartbeat from the past. He woke to find only the hat, patient, perfect, still waiting to be claimed. She used to hum while setting her gloves beside it, like the world outside couldn't reach the quiet they'd made in that room. Now the hat says nothing, just Lindsay to the left, like it remembers how she always left a piece of herself behind. They didn't drink to love or memory. They raised their glasses to what they no longer said. The wine was older than their arguments. It tasted like forgetting and holding on in equal parts. She wore the red dress he used to notice. He didn't mention it. That was the toast. No jazz played that night, just the ticking of an honest clock and the soft clink of resignation. They toasted to the silence, not the kind that screams, but the quiet that settles in like dust on a love seat. Each sip an agreement to let the past keep its coat on. She poured a second glass. Out of politeness, he drank it. Out of habit, their shadows danced on opposite walls, not touching, just existing like two solos in different keys. He almost spoke, she almost smiled, but the wine held their tongues steady. Once they whispered about forever, now they blinked at the same sentence from opposite ends of the table. Some endings don't shatter, they pour quietly into crystal and say nothing while they echo. A lonely trumpet rises like a sigh in velvet, slow but full of everything they never said. The glasses stayed half full, but their eyes never met above the rim. Some things are buried without shovels, just beneath the hush of fallen snow. She met him by the frozen steps, where secrets melt slower than footprints. His coat held smoke and something unspoken. She didn't ask, he didn't offer. They stood too close for strangers, too silent for lovers. And when she turned away, he whispered her name to no one, no. The snow kept the secret soft, like a hand over a mouth, quiet as regret in a warm room. No trace they were there, just breath that curled and vanished before it reached the sky. Later she pressed the memory into her coat pocket like a matchbook from a bar she'd never named. She told no one how his voice carried heat in the middle of December. She smiled less that week, but no one knew why, and she let it stay that way. snow still held her silence, like a song only the cold could hum. Not all affairs are sins, some are just unfinished pages we fold and leave beneath the window. A smoky saxophone glides over a quiet snowfall, as if even the music knows how to keep quiet. She walked home slowly, and the wind didn't ask a thing. They said the cold would stop her, but they forgot. Music has its own kind of fire. She sang with her back to the frozen window, steam from the kettle curling like a melody, still learning to forgive. The room had no heat, but her voice warmed every crack in the wall. They said she was foolish, that grief should be quiet, but she let each note cut the air like red ribbon through snow. She sang until the frost gave in, until the window pane blinked and the silence stepped aside. Each note was a memory, unfolding itself beneath her breath. She wasn't trying to heal, just to survive in key. The neighbors stopped to listen through the pipe. Someone cried. In apartment 3C, even the cat stopped prowling and curled by the radiator like it understood sorrow in a minor chord. She never looked at the clock. Some grief doesn't wear a watch. The frost on the glass cracks softly, as if her voice had asked it a question and gotten the truth. They all left her, the man, the warmth, the light, but her voice stayed and sang beside her, loyal as any goodbye she never got. A golden trumpet spills into the air like the sun trying to wake a frozen street at midnight. By dawn, the window wept, and the song had found its way into someone else's dreams. There are men who leave without leaving, who just breathe until you forget what silence was. He sat by the window, a newspaper folded but unread. The snow tapped lightly, but he tapped lighter, his foot finding rhythm where no song played. She stirred the sugar into his coffee, watched the steam rise like old promises trying to come back. His breath rhymed with the radiator, soft and steady, like a secret no one wanted to tell first. Even in stillness, he played a tune, not with lips, but with the weight of not leaving. He never asked for songs, she sang anyway, quietly, like lightning a match inside a snow globe. Sometimes he'd hum without meaning to, and the room would rearrange itself to hear better. She never knew if he heard the lyrics, but she always noticed when he stopped breathing in the bridges. One night, the radiator clicked like a metronome that had lost faith in the beat. His chair was still warm, but the window didn't fall. You don't always know when someone's last word wasn't a word at all, just the last time they exhaled like they belonged there. Like a radiator that remembers his breath. She opened the window to let the cold in, but it only brought silence, and the chair didn't creak again. She didn't just leave the room, she took the habit with her. Her perfume still clung to the velvet curtains, but the smoke was gone. No flick of flame, no snap of matchstick echoed behind her heels. The ashtrays sat like abandoned lovers, half full, half forgotten. He sat at the bar with empty fingers, no lighter, no reason. No one smoked after she left. The air stayed too clean, too honest. Even the shadows on the wall looked nervous, like they missed being blurred. clears its throat before playing. She never owned the room, but it bent toward her like a match to wine. Each puff was punctuation on a sentence she didn't need to say. She tapped the ash with elegance, like erasing what she never meant, but couldn't forget. Now the bartender dusts the counter without looking up. The silence smells like regret. Even the regulars don't ask where she went, as if naming her absence might burn. There are goodbyes you hear in your throat, and some you breathe in forever. She was the last inhale before the music part. A mournful trumpet swells like smoke rising from a cigarette no one dared to light, and still the room waits. Clean ashtrays, unsaid things, and lungs that don't know what to do with all this air. She left nothing but red gloves and a kind of silence that knows it's being watched. They were folded just so, as if her hands were still inside them, waiting, scarlet against mahogany. Those gloves didn't match the cold or the season, but they matched the ache in his throat when she stood to go and didn't take them. Her red gloves on the table said everything she never did, more vivid than lipstick, more final than good night. They glowed like a warning he hadn't read in time. He reached for them once, then stopped. They weren't his to remember. She always warmed her fingers before holding the wine glass, said cold made truth harder to swallow. He joked she wore fire like perfume, but now the room smelled like dust and things unsaid. No waiter asked, no friend returned them. Some objects know they're not meant to be claimed. Outside They kept playing jazz, but the heat never came back. She used to hum with the saxophone, eyes closed, chin lifted, as if the music came from her and the band just followed. The lights dimmed for her, the glasses clinked quieter when she entered. Now the lights are the same, but the hush feels forced. The jazz never warmed the room again. It echoed, but never landed. Every note a coat too thin for winter's grief. Even the bartender wipes the same glass over and over. Hope in repetition feels like ritual. She didn't just take her perfume or her gloves. She took the tempo, the sway, the kind of smile that made horns blush. They played her favorite song last Thursday. No one noticed. The sax wept like it forgot who it used to seduce. The room still breathed, but in shorter measures. The ceiling fans turn, but the air won't dance. She was never loud, just louder than what came after. Now even jazz feels like silence dressed in sound. A lone piano wanders, searching for the warmth she left in the keys, but finds only chill. The tables stay full, but the room feels hollow. Jazz plays on, but only for the ghosts still listen.
Not every season waits to be welcome. Some just come in and turn the music off. She used to open windows before singing, said songs need air to land in, but this winter closed everything. No breeze, no tune, just frost on the sill, and her coat still hanging like a question. The piano lid stayed shut, even the cat stopped dancing in sunbeams. Winter didn't ask for a song, it arrived with silence. Tucked in its coat, no key change, no bridge, just the sound of nothing, saying everything. She whispered lyric once into her scarf, words that melted before reaching anyone's ears. The mic stood waiting, cord curled like a lover, still hoping. The band came late, then left early. Their notes couldn't find her rhythm. The snow outside piled like unsent letters. No address, no music, to guide them. Some winters come not to freeze you, but to quiet it what sang too long. A lonely trumpet exhales slow and aching, like a song never invited to begin. No one clapped, no one cried, just winter sitting in the front row, not asking for an encore.
The last note hung in the air like breath on a frost-bitten window. She never returned, but the snow did. It came softly, not to cover, but to remember. Each flake a verse, each gust a hush. The bar stayed open, the lights stayed low, the band packed up with quieter hands. No voice filled the mic, no hands reached for the gloves, still folded on that same table. But the snow kept falling outside that little jazz room, like someone still believed she might come back for one last song. And no one dared to sweep it away, because maybe, just maybe, the silence was the music all along. The bar stayed open, the lights stayed low, the band packed up with quieter hands. No voice filled the mic, no hands reached for the gloves, still folded on that same table. But the snow kept falling outside that little jazz room, like someone still believed she might come back for one last song. And no one dared to sweep it away, because maybe, just maybe, the silence was the music all